Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and I don't suck, and neither does the Piffles podcast. But anyone who plays the Riders, they suck. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome into the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us this week, wherever you find us on your podcast platform, watching us on YouTube or on SaskTel Max TV on demand. My name is Alex.
And I am just want to announce playing the role of Steve today is none other than Jeff Fairholm, writer, legend.
Well, I've got big shoes to fill.
Oh, his shoes, he's like a size 9.
He doesn't have
not
that big of shoes. A little more hair. He's got more hair. We will give him that.
A little bit more youth too, maybe.
Well, I'm super excited for this week's episode. Of course, we have Jeff Fairholm joining us, Rider great. But I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was like, it's great if Steve's not going to be here. I actually have the most hair out of anybody right now. I don't get to brag about that very often. So I'm pretty happy about that. You can give us a follow on Twitter at PifflesPod. You can give me a follow at RealAlexD.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
You can follow me at Slotback18.
Yes, and Jeff pays attention to the CFL still and has plenty of opinions, and we're going to get a lot from him this week on the show. Piffles podcast, of course, brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. I have so many questions for you, Jeff. I'm excited. I can't wait to get to it. Let's get to it right now. Let's jump to the opening kickoff. So we'll start with the Saskatchewan Roughriders 2023 season, Jeff. And I know we've disagreed on a few different things about this team over the past year or so, but I'm really interested in your take, especially as a former player and someone who now watches, I don't want to say from afar, but in a different way than you used to. What was your impression on the 2023 Saskatchewan Roughriders, basically finishing the exact same way that they did last year?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as last year. We started off with a decent team, I thought. Coming out of training camp, I thought we had a pretty decent team. I went to training camp for, I think, 3 days. And that's where I started to find that, I don't know if every team does it. I've only been to Riders training camp, first time in many years. And I thought it was really lax, to be honest. So I was a little worried right there. No hitting. I mean, even when they did wear pads, they were on and they were off. They were practicing once a day. Hardly anybody plays in preseason. So I was concerned at the start of the year, but looking at the roster and bringing in Trevor Harris and the Canadians we have, and we upgraded receiver, et cetera, and a little bit of the line, I was very optimistic about the year. And then it just sort of happened like last year, where we came out fairly strong, and then the season pretty much ended, in my opinion, when Harris got hurt, and we just fell apart. So I think for me, the underlying theme that I saw is not a great term, because I'm not in the locker room, but I just didn't see a culture. I didn't see a culture on the team that worked, and something was wrong. I don't know what it was. I'm not in the locker room, but I can tell you from my experience, for whatever that's worth, there's something wrong with that football team inside the locker room, and they just didn't want to play for each other anymore.
So is that is that a player thing? Is that coaching staff? Is that higher up, or is it all throughout the franchise?
Well, I can't say it's all throughout the franchise because I think football operations is very separate from the administration side. And maybe that's a bit of an issue too. Maybe they need to bring that a little bit closer because I do understand that the administrative side, the office, the culture is fantastic. And Craig Reynolds has done a wonderful job, certainly with the financial aspects of things, and the culture in the office is fantastic. The locker room, that comes down to the coaches, the head coach for sure. And I don't want to, pee on his grave or anything like that. But, poor guy's gone and somebody lost his job. But, it ultimately lands on Craig Dickinson. And somewhere, somehow, I think they were just too easy on the team when things happen. I don't think, you guys have said it on the podcast many times when, something goes wrong on the field and the coach is clapping and things like that. It just doesn't show a good message. And when you're constantly trotting out the same players that got blown out the game before, and players see the film and they see that, hey, so-and-so is not playing hard or is not doing his job, and they keep trotting that player out and out and out, there's no accountability. So, that hurts a culture as well. So, but ultimately it lands on the head coach. So to answer, long answer to your question is the head coach, but, the players have to be there for themselves as well. So they have some accountability.
So you were coached by Don Matthews here in Saskatchewan for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying every coach needs to be like that. That's a totally different time. And that style of coaching doesn't necessarily work anymore. But how did you, being with Don Matthews and then seeing what you saw here with Craig Dickinson, would you say that there's like such a big enough transparency that, I don't even know how to word it. Like, I don't even know how to word it. It's just does there need to be more like Don back in the CFL?
Well, every coach has their own way of doing things, and Don certainly had his way of doing it, as did John Gregory, and I got to play with Don for 1 year in Toronto again. Actually, the president of the Argos at the time had asked me who I thought should be the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts, and I, without hesitation, said Don Matthews. And he went out and got him and Doug Flutie. So, we had a pretty good team in '96. But Don had a way of doing things that he trusted you and he inspired you, which I believe in that type of leadership, with trust and inspire. And but you also knew it was very, very clear that if you did something wrong, that Don would come down on you. And I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that threat was always there. I don't remember what year it was. Well, it was 1 year in Saskatchewan. I think it was his first one. And I can't remember the D lineman that came in, but he was out drunk one night and he was climbing on the balconies of the old Regina Inn. And, they called Don in the middle of the night, and, his ass was on a plane the next day. That's just the way it was. And you just knew you just didn't cross the man. And, he trusted us until you did something wrong. And, when you broke his trust in you, or he never broke his trust with us, but when you broke his trust, you're done. And, you just kind of knew that.
Speaking of breaking trust, that kind of reminds me of last year with Craig Dickinson, when you had players going on social media basically saying that is not what you're saying in the locker room. Would you say at that point that Craig basically lost the locker room last year even going into this year?
Yeah, last year was a mess. With the whole Marino thing that happened, and, some players were sticking up for Marino and, different things. It's just, there was something really wrong with all the penalties that were going on last year as well. There was something very wrong in that locker room. This year, I think some of it still manifested itself into it when they started losing, and they just couldn't pull themselves out of it because they weren't, in my opinion, a tight-knit team. So, and you need to have that tight-knit team, and you need to have leadership from the locker room. And I question whether they had enough of those leaders to pull the team ahead when things got bad.
That actually answered my next question. I was going to say, what about at what point does it come down to the players? You have guys like Derek Moncrief, Micah Johnson, even Nick Marshall, who is the longest tenured rider outside of actually, I think he is the longest tenured rider outside of Jorgen Hughes, actually.
Yeah, Hughes.
But at what point do the leaders in the locker room need to really just kind of elevate themselves to say, okay, coach is saying this, but
Day one of training camp.
day
It's
one?
an easy answer. Day one of training camp is where the leaders step up and they take ownership of the team, regardless of what the coach does or coaches, or regardless of what other players do. The leaders of the team have to establish themselves on day one. And if they don't, it's really hard to establish yourself because the team doesn't know who the leaders in the locker room are going to be. There were years that we played in spite of our coaches, because some of them had issues. So, we had great leaders in our locker rooms, and we would, have a closed door meeting without coaches and say, we got to do it on ourselves. We're the ones who cross the white stripe every down, and we have to make it happen. And if we don't, well, we're not professionals. I don't see that with the Riders. I saw a lot of disjointed, it's all for me kind of thing. And, it's changed a lot since I played. I haven't played for 30 years, but, it's a lot of, you catch a pass and it's, first down and way to go. It's like, get up and go to the huddle. It's like, it seems to be the players these days are all me instead of team. So, maybe that's just the way it is now. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
I think you saw flashes of it this year. But honestly, the last time this team seemed to be cohesive was when they had fights in practices. Does that actually make a team gel, or
yeah?
But why'd they lose it?
Yeah, I said it sometimes on Twitter where, this team just didn't have a fire under their rear end. When they were going to games that they had to win, where was the fire? And I said, someone needs to get into a fight in practice, really rile things up. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but it actually gives the leaders a chance in the locker room to bring the team back together after a fight in practice, and or make an aggressive penalty. Like I said, I walked it back a bit and said, you don't want to get kicked out of the game these days or anything, but sometimes taking a really aggressive penalty gets the team fired up too. And I just didn't see it. And this, it's like the team, everybody on the team was almost waiting for somebody to do something. And, after 60 minutes, nobody's done anything. So it's like, what the heck's going on?
Did Jeff Fairholm ever get in a fight in training camp or in practice?
Yeah, I did.
Not with Ray though, right?
With who?
Ray?
Are you
Elgard?
kidding? He'd kill me. No, I never fought with an offensive player. There was just a couple in training camp where we had a couple rookies and they weren't supposed to hit, and they, hit me downfield or something. And I give them one pass, but it happens again. You and I are going, and, it happens a couple times. And then in games when, I didn't do anything dirty, but when, a DB pissed me off or something, I'd give him one pass and then I'd go and I'd just, at those days, I would just go cut him at the knees. And, if your knee's in the way and I blow it out, so be it.
So looking at this team, the Rider team going forward, obviously they need a new head coach. We don't know who that's going to be. What changes needed to be made and what changes should be made?
Needed to be made. I was thinking, I think that they probably were going to make a change at head coach if we lost that BC game before Labor Day. I have a strong feeling that I think changes would have happened there. We played a great game, won the game, threw the ball downfield like I have been asking for all year, won the game. And then I think the next game was Labor Day, wasn't it?
Yep.
And then we win that game, and then of course we go on the infamous, our standard seven game loss streak. So I think the change, if it had happened then, I think the team may have been able to win a couple games in those last 7. But I'm not sure. I mean, the team's not going to change. It's the head coach that had to make a statement. But I tell you what, they probably would have won their next one, because whenever you change coaches, it seems like everybody plays hard the next game. I had a couple of changes in my career, and it just, you seem to win the next one. I think what they need. So that's what I think should have happened. Unfortunately, I understand why it didn't. But if it had happened, I think we might have had a better chance at the playoffs. What needs to happen now. And unfortunately, none of the coaches are going to be back. I don't think anyway. Someone needs to evaluate the culture in that locker room. And I mean, each player. They need to go through each and every player and understand what that player brought or didn't bring to the locker room. That's number one, in my opinion, when you're talking about all of these free agents. Which ones do you want to bring back? Forget how good they are on the field right now. Right now, you need a team, and they need to figure out who's going to fit in the culture of whatever of the coach who comes in. That coach needs to figure that out, and you figure out what culture you want, how you're going to build it, and then you bring players in that fit that culture. And I'll tell you, if they don't fit the culture, 86 them. Get rid of them right away.
So how does a team start building that culture?
Well, you have to have a plan first. So a coach has to come in and build a business plan, if you will. And that coach is going to say, this is going to be my culture, whatever that culture is. And it usually goes to that coach's personality. So if they have a personality and they want this certain culture, they don't want penalties, but they want to play hard. They want to play with, physicality, and they want to have a really big, strong offensive line. But we want guys to gel in the locker room, and we're going to take them bowling in training camp rather than in game 17. I'm kidding. But, whatever kind of culture you want, you go out and get those players, and you do. And that's the general manager and all of the scouts. They have to go and do their due diligence on these kids that they're going to bring in. And let's face it, they are kids. And any free agents they're going to bring in, and whoever they look at in the draft, they have to go through and do background checks and see what they were like in their locker rooms in the past. That's how you build a team. I don't know if they did it in our team in 88 and 89 and 90, but I'll tell you, we had an amazing locker room. And if someone fell out of line, they were taken care of one way or the other. I'm not saying we put hits on them or anything. It sounds really bad, but either the players would deal with it ourselves or themselves, or the coaches would, or the GM would. So there was always, like I said, there was always some sort of accountability. I'll use that word, but that's how you build the culture. You have to decide what culture you want first, and then you get it down into the players, and you get the players that fit that culture.
So with that, Milt Stiegel recently said the Riders were missing a lot of top-tier talents, a lot of betas, not alphas. So what's more important, a fit to the locker room or guys with the talent that might not be there?
You need both. I mean, ideally you have both. And I think if you look at Toronto this year, they have both. They have some amazing talent. They have depth. And from what I understand, I was talking to Pinball, and I was talking to Danny Webb, the equipment manager, before the last game. And I was asking them, how did you build your culture? And I explained it already. They did that. And they said that Dinwiddie has a certain way of running it. The players have a certain way of running it. And, that's just how they have, and they have great players. So they went out and found them. And there's football players everywhere. Maybe not Canadians. Okay. Canadians are a different animal, but when you're bringing Americans up, or free agents, you got to do those background checks. You got to have good players, but you got to have a good culture. You got to have both. Toronto has that. That's why they're going to win the Grey Cup this year.
All right, well, scrap my last question for you. Who's going to win the Grey Cup?
Anyone but Winnipeg. Anyone but Winnipeg.
Yeah, I hear you there, Greg.
Going for you yourself, we're talking culture and coaching, you have a guy like John Gregory, and then you have, a guy like Don Matthews, at least to me on the outside, looks like polar opposites. As a player, how do you, respond to two different type of coaches like that and find the inspiration and the motivation to go out there and be the absolute best that you can be and help your team win championships?
You be a professional. I mean, I grew up with my dad who played 8 years in the CFL, and he taught me a long time ago how to be a professional. And I was a professional when I went to college, and I was a professional when I came to the pros, which I had never thought I would. But I mean, you still got a job to do. You're getting paid. And you know what? I'm getting paid to do a job now, and I'm a professional regardless of, whatever crap people want to throw at me. I'm still going to go out and do my job. And when my boss comes in, i.e. the head coach, and they have a certain culture that they want to instill, I'm going to fall in line. but I'm going to do my job. I'm still going to, I'm still going to be the first one to put my hand up and ask questions and why. And, I'm still going to work my ass off in practice. And I'm still going to look up to players like Eddie Lowe, who just never stopped running after he crossed the stripe. And, you're still going to have these things. And I'm not saying you want a whole locker room full of Jeff Fairholms, because you don't want that. You want a mix, but you want everybody to get along and play for each other and understand that, hey, I'm a professional just like you are. And you mentioned Ray Elgard earlier. We couldn't be from further sides of the tracks, but we got along well enough that, we respected each other. We played hard for each other. We didn't get into fights. I mean, we just came to play off each other and really work well together.
You're telling me there's a difference between you, Elgard, and Don Narcisse? I think you guys are the same person, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're all really the same. We used to watch film, and I swear to God, we would be watching each other on film, and I would look at Narco and go, "How in the hell did you do that?" And then I'd say the same thing to Ray, and Ray would say it to me, and it was just friendly banter, and we all learned of each other. But that's what a good group does.
Okay, well, a lot of people may not remember or don't know you were actually a coach yourself with the Toronto Argonauts after your playing days. Are you putting your name in the hat for Riders head coach?
No, I don't understand these players these days, and the game is somewhat passed me by. People would say I would be an offensive coach, but I don't even understand the offenses these days. They go through this long laundry list, and I just know when I want to throw it deep and when I want to run the ball. No, I wouldn't want to do that. It's the game's passed me by that way. I've got a good job. I make way more money than I would as a head coach, so I'm quite happy where I am. Thank you very much.
The problem is you weren't a quarterback. Quarterbacks can only become coaches, apparently.
No, and when I played, I always knew what I had to do, and I knew the adjustments I'd have to make depending on the coverages we were getting and the blitzes, and I knew when to run hot, and I very, very, very rarely made mistakes. But I never knew the offensive line. I never knew when or why they were calling something. I never questioned it. My attitude on the bench was, you call it, I run it, and I'll do the best I can to make it work.
Now, Jeff Fairholm, the Saskatchewan Roughrider fan, who would you like to see as the next head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders leading this team in 2024? We've seen a lot of names being thrown out there. Some, to me, pretty far out there, like a Henry Burris, a Kerry Joseph. I think that's just kind of, clickbait more than anything. They do have the coaching background now, but I think they're still years away here anyway. But as a fan, who does Jeff Fairholm want to see lead this team?
I think we need a safe bet, to be honest with you. I'd love to say, let's go out and, hire Burris or something like that and take a bit of a wing and a prayer and try something. I think the two you mentioned with Joseph and Burris, I think they need to be offensive coordinators in our league first before they can make that jump. Running a team in the locker room is very different. But the name that is the safe bet, and then his name has escaped me, Hamilton's OC.
Scott Milanovich.
Scott Milanovich.
Thank you. So Milanovich is the safe bet. If he gets locked up, though, I would say the next one, I would say Maximic. Now it's not a safe bet, but he's been an OC in the league, and he's done really well with BC. So I would go Milanovich first, then Maximic second. Then after that, it's a bit of a steep hill, I think.
Now, do you think this team would need a younger coach like a Maximic, like maybe a Corey Mace? You look at what Corey Mace has done in Toronto. I mean, heck, he played with half those guys over with the Calgary Stampeders. Mm-hmm. But just to relate to players, do you think that's a really big important thing?
I think it is, but you have to draw the line somewhere. When you become a coach, the line gets blurred when you're so new out of playing. I think that if we bring back how many free agents we have, 46. If we bring half of them back, then I think we need a coach that can lay the law down a lot faster. and coach and players, coach that players will respect. And right now, I think the safe bet after coming off of 2 years like we've had, I think we need someone with some head coaching experience. That's my opinion.
All right. Well, you mentioned your father, Larry. Played 8 years in the CFL with Montreal. You said that he taught you how to be a pro. What else did he teach you about becoming a pro football player? Him being a safety and knowing what the offense is doing, and you being a receiver trying to figure out what the defense is doing.
Yeah, he taught me how to work hard. I grew up around the Autostad and even McGill when my dad was playing, and I caught punts from Sonny Wade and passes from Sonny Wade and things that I don't remember a lot of it. I've been hitting the head a lot, but some things I really do remember. My dad taught me how to be on time. I'm so on time now, it actually gives me anxiety sometimes. No, he taught me how to be on time. He taught me how to respect people, respect your players, your teammates, your coaches. Know the playbook. Don't make mistakes. Don't rely on your athletic ability. You have to work hard on every single play, everything you do. And that, as he taught me that, and as I moved up in the ranks into high school and then into college at the University of Arizona, I was like a fish out of water coming from a private boys high school in Oakville, Ontario. I think we had 42 people in my graduating class, private boys high school. And, going to Arizona where, there were 120 people on our team alone. And what he taught me as I grew up, I was able to surround myself with people who had the same type of morals and ethics that I did, and people who I could look up to. People like Jay Dobbins, Alan Durden, Chuck Cecil, people, and some names, some people may have heard of them before, or maybe not. But I surrounded myself very quickly with those people when I was a freshman. And then when I was started as a sophomore, junior, and senior, I just continually looked for those people to surround myself with. And then when I got, sorry for the long answer, but when I got to pro in Saskatchewan, I had this behemoth Elgard who was, tromping through people, but I had other guys like Roger Aldag and Bob and Bobby Jerson and all these people and Tom Burgess, and they just basically took me under their wing. And I'd already known how to be a professional, but I was able to fit in with those guys because I was maybe a little older than my years suggested.
You don't need to apologize for long answers. No one wants to listen to us anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to hear all that, but anyway, pretty cool people. I was lucky to be around some great people, and you have to have a lot of luck too. I was when I was at Arizona, I went down there as a running back, and after 3 days of main camp, all of the flankers behind the starter got hurt, so they threw me out there, and I never looked back. And I ended up with second string as a freshman, and never played a down on offense, thank goodness. But I got second string and just never let it go.
So when you first came to Saskatchewan, what was your first impression of coming here?
I came in and I remember going in to sign. I think it was in early April, and I was coming up from Tucson, and I didn't have a coat. And Bill Baker and Dan Rambo sort of took me over, and I flew into this. I flew in in the middle, not in the middle of the night, but it was late and it was dark, and I didn't really see the town. And I grew up in the East, guys. I didn't, when you live in the East, the West doesn't exist back then. So I didn't know where I was going. I knew they drafted me high. I had agreed on a contract, so I was going up to sign, and they took really good care of me. I found the people to be just lovely right away. They took, Tom Burgess and Dave Ridgway took me out to dinner at the Diplomat at the time, and Thomas, we met Thomas for the first time, and he's now he owns Memories, and it was just fun, and I felt at home. I guess I'm a small town guy, and relatively speaking, and I just love the West. I've been out West for 4 years in Arizona, and I just loved it right away. It was very family oriented, and it was easy for me.
Who was your first roommate with the team, whether it was living conditions or whether it was just on the road?
Living conditions, I came up with my first wife, and we rented a house right away. And so that was that one. And then on the road, Joe McDougall put me with Elgard all the time. So it was, again, learning how to be a pro. He was the best at it.
Okay, so you got to have some pretty good Ray Elgard stories. I can understand if you can't share them all here.
I don't think I can share any of them.
I mean, he told us one time on this show about going to Ottawa and looking in peepholes and locker rooms and stuff like that. We won't get into that, obviously.
Well, I can tell you one story. I'll tell you one story. You mentioned Ottawa, and that was my first pro regular season game, and we had won the game, and everyone was so excited. I didn't even know what had happened, prior to '88, and I guess we'd lost 11 years in a row and whatever, and we won the game, and everyone was so excited. And we were in the shower. I'm not going to get dirty here or anything, but Steve Goldman, who was our offensive coordinator, came into the shower. Coaches would shower with the players, whatever. And he walked in, and he was a very hairy guy. And Elgard yells out, he says, "Hey, someone get a gun. There's a bear in the shower." And I just lost it. I thought, this is pro football at its best. You're just dogging your boss right after a win. So it was a good time. We had a lot of fun together.
Obviously, the jewel of the West was Taylor Field, so to speak. Tell us about that old girl compared to the new stadium.
Ooh. Well, I love Taylor Field. I'm nostalgic. I've been around the CFL. I grew up around the Autostad, which wasn't exactly a jewel. And I love those old barns. I love playing in Iverwin Stadium. I love playing in Old Lansdowne. I just love those old places. And I really miss the fact that we don't have Taylor Field anymore. And it toughens you up. I mean, it was home for us, but it toughens you up. I think these guys might be a little padded right now because I'll tell you, Mosaic Stadium now is absolutely gorgeous. And I've been around Arizona's facilities, which is top notch and things like that. But whoa, I tell you, we are that facility that we have. I don't know how we can't attract. If we can't attract players to that place, you just can't sell. You just can't sell the place. It's first class. It's better than, I would say, most, if not all, of the NFL facilities. It's that good.
Do you have a favorite memory of Taylor Field?
Yeah, my 100 and whatever yard touchdown is a fun one that I remember. But I think the Labor Day Classics were always a riot. But I'll tell you, the one game that was electric was I want to say it was we need Rob Vanstone on here, but I want to say it was the first time an American team had come up to play us, and I think it was the Sacramento Gold Miners.
Yep. Sacramento was the first one. Yeah.
Was it the first one? Yeah. Okay. You guys know better than me. So it was just electric. I mean, it was more electric than any Labor Day Classic. And I caught a touchdown and ran up into the stands in the south end zone. And, it was just, that was a great memory. That was a hell of a lot of fun. That was a great game.
Were you on the, I want to say it was a Saskatchewan game in Vegas in 95. You might've been in Toronto then.
I was in Toronto. I never played in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He wasn't at the old Christmas tree game?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who was on the sidelines. I remember hearing a story about the players just busting the gut laughing at the anthem being sung completely wrong. But
wouldn't surprise me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about free agents for this Riders team, and we're going to go from the opening kickoff here, presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. We'll jump to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. 36 free agents for the Riders. We'll start broad there, and then we're going to narrow it down to receivers here in a little bit. A team with 36 free agents, 6-12 record, losing 7 straight. Now, there's some good names on this list, I think. There's some very solid players. Jake Dolegala, I think, needs to be brought back. Jamal Morrow's on there. Sean Bain Jr., Tevin Jones, Phillip Blake, Logan Furlan.
The entire offensive line.
Yeah, pretty much.
Other than Godbear.
Good players on defense. Micah Johnson, Anthony Lanier, Pete Robertson, Larry Dean's on there as well, too. But 2 straight years of losing the way that they have. How many guys out of 36 here do you even want to bring back if you're Jeremy O'Day and whoever the new head coach is going to be?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, the first thing you got to do is you got to go through culture. Like I said before, I hate to keep harping on it, but I'm obviously a big believer in it. You need to figure out if anyone was an issue in the locker room, and you need to 86 them right away. You got to wait for a new head coach to come in too, obviously. You can't keep trotting the same players out there and expect different results. That was clear. We can't do that 2 years in a row. Our offensive line was better, but we need to be even more better. Sounds like Obilovich. I can't believe I just said that. It just popped into my head. It's true though. More better. So I gotta tell you this story. So when I signed my contract in Toronto, I was there with my dad, and Gil Scott was my agent, and we were with Obi in the old CNE Stadium, and we had agreed to terms, and Obi says, "Oh, good, we're great." And then so he's, my dad says, we probably should sign it just to make sure in case someone gets hit by a bus. And Obi turns around and he says, "I was hit by a bus once." That sort of cleared up a lot for us at the time. It's a true story. Anyway, back to free agents. So, you can't keep trotting the same players out there. So, our offensive and defensive lines have to be sturdy, and we have to improve on both. The defensive line showed up sometimes and sometimes not. I understand we had injuries. We got to find out who the leaders are and go after them first. The good leaders. I think our offensive line improved quite a bit. I mean, Blake's getting old though. He's 37 or 38 years old.
He'll be 38 next year. Yeah.
He'll be 38 next year.
So I don't know how longer he can go. I don't know if Council's on that free agent list or not, but
he is not.
Well, I think we need to do something with that. But we've got the makings of the start of an offensive line. And who better to fix an offensive line than Jeremy O'Day? I mean, he needs to do that. So they improved, but they didn't get that much better. Dolagala has promise. I think that if he has a chance to learn from Trevor Harris over the course of at least half a season, I think he'll improve. So I think he's a keeper. I agree with you there, Alex. Receivers, we can talk about that in a second, but we have to sign our Canadians too. We have to make sure it's all about quarterbacks and quarterbacks and Canadians in this league. So whoever's on the list, and I don't have it in front of me, but whoever's in the list that is Canadian, like Emilus and, KSB and those kind of guys, we have to make sure we get them re-signed.
Well, the good news is there's only one Canadian on the free agent list for receivers, and that's Braden Lenius. The other receivers are Mario Alford, Sean Bain Jr., I guess Jawan Breskinson, and Kevin Jones. So we need someone to blow the top off the offense. I've been saying that or off the defense. We've been saying that for 2 years now. And, we did get the ball downfield a lot more this year, but the receivers had to make those plays. Still haven't seen anybody who's, 3-4 yards ahead of a receiver and catching the ball over their head. Last year was a lot of 50-50 balls, I think, because of the lack of arm strength from our quarterback. This year we had the arm strength, but nobody was really getting in behind. So we need to fix that. And, if we can get a Canadian who can do that, great. But if not, we need to find an American who can do that and do it all the time.
Okay, going on Jake Dolagala here. Talking about how if he had more time with Trevor Harris, obviously on the field, on the practice field. I'm sure Trevor was in the locker room and meetings quite often. Is that a coaching thing to you as well? That he just needs, the right guy to maybe an X's and O's type guy to help him out, whether it's mechanics or something different?
You would hope that his mechanics are solid when you become a professional, but pros still need that help. Yeah. especially at the quarterback position. He needs to get back to basics a little bit. His short passes and his medium passes were sometimes a little suspect. We stopped going over the middle for some reason. You know, in the beginning of the year, first half of the year, we were throwing those 15-yard dig routes really well, and then we got away from it. I think he's got promise, but what he needs not only Trevor Harris on the field, but he needs to watch the film of Trevor after the game and sit there and listen to what Trevor had, you know, done wrong and what he'd done right and learn from that. You know, I said it before. I mean, Jake has played behind Cody Fajardo, and Jake's not like that at all. Jake stands in the pocket and can throw the ball deep. He's a very different quarterback. So he didn't learn anything from Cody because he's not much of a scrambler, and Cody is or was. And, you know, and then he had Trevor Harris to learn behind, and, you know, he was hurt after whatever it was, 6 games. So, you know, he's sort of been on his own, but I think he's got a lot of promise.
Looking at the defense, I know you're an offensive guy, but looking at the defense with how they started the season, they were to me, a big part of the reason why the Riders got to 6 wins. A lot of those wins at the beginning of the year was because the defense was playing so good. Obviously, injuries happened. Roland Milligan was a big one in the secondary, and after he got injured, it all seemed to just kind of, you know, go downhill for the defense from there. What needs to happen on the back end?
But our back end hurts right now. I'm sorry, I can't deal with Marshall anymore. I just can't deal with it. I mean, you know, he makes a great play and then he lets 2 or 3 go by him. I can't buy that anymore. And I'd rather have a much more solid player. I mean, I'm sure he can find a job in Edmonton with Jones, but he's just not. I just don't think he's a rough rider for this team. I hate to be so critical of a player, but, you know, it's just the way it is. I like Dalkey a lot. I think he's going to improve. I think, you know, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to protect his body a little bit, but I really like Dalkey a lot. Milligan is a great player. CJ Revis is a great player. I think we put Moncrief in the wrong position a couple times. And, you know, he's getting a little old now too. He got run over by, who was it? I can't remember. He got run over by a quarterback, and I can't remember who it was.
Schultz, I think it was.
It was
Schultz. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, that's just a bad look. So our back end, we have a couple of holes to fill there, I think. Linebacker, boy, I was really disappointed in Tights' year this year. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was put in the wrong scheme. I don't know. I think he's a better football player than what we saw. And of course, Larry Dean. What can you say about Larry? I mean, he's a fantastic player. He's that quiet leader that I love. And you know, hopefully he's back.
He's getting up there in age too, though. But do you keep on rolling him out there until do you ascribe to a year too soon over a year too late, or how much longer do you think Larry Dean's got in him with his injury history?
Well, here's the thing. There's got to be some loyalty somewhere, right? And that's where these 1-year I hate these 1-year contracts, because it seems to me there's just no loyalty anymore. And I know I may be talking out of both sides of my mouth because I left, you know, Saskatchewan after 6 years to go to Toronto. But, you know, there's got to be some loyalty, you know, on both sides. You've got to be able to sign for a year or 2 or 3, or a year plus an option, which doesn't exist anymore. But I think it goes both ways, and I think Larry Dean's, you know, he's paid his dues, and I think to answer your question, I'd wait till a year too late. Wait till a year too late. I wouldn't want to play against him right now.
I'd be remiss if we didn't ask you a little bit more about the 1989 team. I know people in Saskatchewan, I just talked about it in an article about Taylor Field. You talked about it as well, too, the whole nostalgia thing. 1989, the Grey Cup game. You had that huge touchdown catch. Would you say
wrong shoulder? That one there.
Yeah. Would you say that was not the game, just that catch and touchdown? Was that the biggest play of your career?
Oh, without question. Yeah. That play was, it was the pinnacle of my career, even though I was only, you know, finishing my second season. And it was a funny play because I never, like I said before, I never said anything on the bench. You know, whenever Kent or Tom came up to me and said, "What do you think?" I said, "You call him, I run him." You know, I never really, I don't know if it was a superstitious thing or what, but I just never said anything. And prior to that series, Tommy came over to me and said, "Can you beat Jordan Deep?" Wasn't sure if it was Jordan or Gordon. It was because they had two halfbacks. But and I looked at him and said, "Yes, I can." And I would never have said that any other time. And I don't think I ever did it again in my career. And so Tom went to Kent, and Kent went to Pal, and they called the play, and Kent threw it deep. And but I would never have said that. And it was just one of those weird times, and weird things happen in Grey Cups. So. But yeah, definitely the biggest play of my career, and certainly one I'll never, ever forget, regardless of how many hits I've had in the head.
And so going into that game, obviously we know I'm going to bring up the 16-2 Edmonton and Toronto parallel here in a little bit. But going into the Grey Cup game against Hamilton, when did you guys know that you guys were going to beat them?
Oh God, not till the last second. Not until Dave kicked the field goal, and even then I wasn't sure what happened. A lot of people say that we won the Grey Cup when we beat Edmonton, but remember, we were a 9-9 team, and we were floating by the seat of our pants. And we had a very fiery head coach, and if things went wrong, we had Gary Gregor to settle him down. And there was a lot of weird stuff that happened that year. When Suter got that really bad interference call, it could have broken us apart, but it actually brought us together. We had just amazing, Dave Albright in that Western final was out of his mind. God rest his soul. He was out of his mind in that game playing, and Eddie Lowe, and our defense just, Bobby Jerson, and oh my God, we just had players that just came to play. We always knew we had a good team. We had a lot of injuries that year as well, which is why I think we were 9-9, and maybe we surprised Edmonton a bit. They came out with us a little cocky. There was stuff in the paper that we didn't take lightly, but we went in there and just played the game. And we had an amazing offensive coordinator. We had a two quarterback monster that could not be stopped. When Kent was good, he was good, but when he was bad, and we put Tommy in. And look at the Western final, Tom won the game for us. So it was just one of those special years, and I love every single one of those guys.
I have two more questions about that game. One was about John Gregory. What did he say to you guys in the locker room before the game?
I have no idea. I have no clue. God, I was
Were you
so
just
nervous.
in the zone and didn't pay attention?
I was so nervous. I was a very nervous before game player, so I was probably throwing up in the stall somewhere. Me and Roger Aldag would throw up before every game, and I had no idea what he said. I don't remember being introduced. I don't remember the anthem. I remember the game. I remember stepping onto the field, and then just sort of everything went dark and just went and played.
Okay, my last question about that game is Tony Champion, his touchdown catch to tie the game, to make it 40-40 at the end. As a receiver, did you see that and go, holy crap, that was like, considering the circumstances, right, with broken ribs, and I think it was third down as well, too.
I don't remember the down. I remember, Harry had really good cover on him too. And boy, what a throw by Mike Kerrigan, and what a catch. It was one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. But you know what? We got in shootouts a lot that year, and we were an offense that knew we could score on anybody at any time. And I do remember sitting on the bench going, got to score. Here we go. And we knew we had time to get down there. Now, I didn't think the players that made the plays would make those plays, or I knew they would make them if they had the opportunity. I just didn't think that the ball would be going to those players at such a crucial time. Speaking of Mark Guy, and I think Ellingson had a catch on that drive or something like that too. And it was just surreal that it had to happen, and it was just one of those things. We sat on the bench, okay, let's go. And then, I remember Ray putting his arm around John Gregory and saying, we're fine. Here we go. And we just went out and did our jobs. It's just one of those things. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to put into words, but it's just a feeling you have.
All right. So you guys go into that game by beating the 16-2 Edmonton team. The Toronto Argonauts this year, 16-2. We haven't seen since '89. What will it take? And you've already kind of spoiled it by saying that they're going to win the Grey Cup.
Sorry.
If someone were to upset them, what's it going to take for a team to beat a team like Toronto?
There's going to have to be a sniper in the stands that kills the two quarterbacks from Toronto. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I think they have the right makeup. I don't think they're near as cocky as Edmonton was. I think they have so much depth. They are super well coached. Not that they weren't in Edmonton, but they're super well coached, and they're just going to keep them. They're going to come in healthy. You know, they've had 5 games or something to keep everybody healthy. I can't imagine that Hamilton or Montreal could possibly beat them. The only way it might happen is if Montreal's in there with that defense. Their defense is much, much better now with Sankey and Lemon. So it might not be as high scoring as you think, but I can't imagine a scenario where Toronto doesn't come out on top. But that's why we played the game, right? So
that's right. Well, let's every week we do picks for our games. I think Greg has the Lions this week. We actually have Lions this week. We didn't last week because it was basically just
no one knew who was playing.
Extra week of preseason that we saw in the last week of the season. So the first one, Hamilton at Montreal. Jeff, if you want to give a guess here as to what do you think the spread might be on that one?
Yeah, sure. I'm not a bettor, but listening to you guys over and over, I'm gonna say it's gonna be pretty close. I'm gonna say 4 for Montreal.
I'm gonna go a little bit closer. I think it'll be 2.5.
Started at 2.5. It's now a 3-point game.
I'm glad I don't bet.
I think you're right, though. I honestly, I don't think it's going to be that close. I think Montreal is going to easily cover that 3 points, so it will be at least a 4-point game.
Well, it's going to come down to how well Mitchell can play, right? I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play the whole game, and unless it comes down to the end. But I think he's going to, if he can play and regather some of that stardom from Calgary, who knows? They could easily come out with a win.
I'm a big fan of chaos, regardless. And I think that especially people here in Saskatchewan would lose their minds if Cody Fajardo and Jason Moss somehow got to the Grey Cup and won it a year after getting there or leaving. So I'm on board with Montreal this week.
We're doing hats.
I like it.
So I'm
Props.
on board.
Where's your lock of the week?
Chaos.
That's the old Alouettes one from my dad's
French horn.
I think that was my dad's from like 70. It was 1970. I'm sure he had that.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
so.
definitely 70s. Yeah, the French horn.
Yeah.
Yeah, the red and green French horn. Yeah,
I loved it.
Who knows what's going to happen with Hamilton's quarterbacks? At least Montreal has that. They know what they're going to do with quarterbacks. Hamilton, I'm still not really sure does, and I think that's going to make a big difference in this game. And Montreal's defense, like you said, Jeff, is if Noel Thorpe has them going, they're going to be very tough to beat, especially in this game at home. So I'll go with Montreal and to cover the spread on that one. And the other game, Calgary at BC. I'd imagine BC is probably a pretty heavy favorite. 8.5.
After what happened when Calgary went in there and beat them, I'm going to say it's going to be closer as far as the spread. I'm going to say 6.5. That for me or for Alex?
that's for you. You nailed it.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
6.5 has not moved at all.
Well, personally, I think BC is going to beat them by a lot more than that. I think they're going to beat them by 14 points, but I understand where the spreads need to be too. So, but I think BC is going to come out and, they've got tape on what Calgary had to do. And I think I don't think it's going to be close.
I think BC's. Go ahead. Sorry.
Do you take much stock into that last game that they played a couple of weeks ago? Like Calgary had to win that game essentially, at least to put the pressure on the Riders in that last regular season game. And they came out and they played their best game of the year. And BC pretty much, I think Rick Campbell pretty much said it at halftime. Yeah, we're kind of giving up here. We're going to get Vernon out of the game here and go with Dane Evans just to keep our guys healthy.
Yeah, it's number one. It's tough to win 2 games in a row against any team. Number one. Number two, yeah, BC just wasn't there. They're going to fill that stadium, I hope. And BC's going to come out flying. And Jake Mayer, I'm not a fan of Jake Mayer. I think he's a second string playing first string all year. I just don't think he has it in him. The receivers have been dropping balls, especially the last 2 games. So I see BC winning by 14.
Watching those receivers drop balls, how much does that make you mad?
Makes me nuts. Makes me crazy. It not as much as when I see NFL players drop balls because they make a hell of a lot more money. So, but no, it makes me crazy.
I like BC in this one. My concern as always is VA's consistency, and I love that man. I think he's a great quarterback, but when he has a bad game, he has a really bad game. But I don't think Calgary has the horses, pun intended. So I think BC's going to win, but it's going to be closer than anticipated.
For all the reasons that you guys said, yes, I as well am going with BC. But I think, like Jeff said, that the score is going to be, that's a 2-score game. That's a 14-point game. I can't see them at home doing that again. I can't see them blowing that one. So, and one other thing we didn't mention this week, and Jeff, I'm not sure how much you still pay attention to CJFL. If you do, obviously Greg's.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not cheering for him.
He's not cheering for the Saskatoon Hilltops, but they shut out.
St. Clair like 45-0 or something, right?
43-0.
Yeah, how does that happen in a semifinal?
I love the CJFL, but the Ontario Football Conference is the redheaded stepchild of the CJFL.
Thanks for not saying bald-headed.
Yeah, hey, I got to protect myself here too. But no, seriously, like a few years ago, they were doing cross-conference play. The Thunder went out there and played Hamilton, and they won 66-0.
Yeah,
the OFC does not recruit like BC or the Prairie Football Conference does. Probably to do with the colleges, but
now you guys follow it a lot more than I do. But where's the Quebec Junior Football League at? Like Quebec is
non-existent.
Really,
it used to be. It used to exist. They folded 90s. But yeah, it's only been a 3-conference league for a while now.
That's a shame, because my dad got to Arizona as well, but he got through by playing junior football, and he actually won the Canadian Championship against the Saskatoon Hilltops in 1964. No, 1960, I think. Yeah, something like that. And he was with the can't remember, Rosemount Bombers, so out of Montreal. So I'm shocked that they let it go because Quebec has such a great football legacy.
And the Toppers will be facing off in BC against the West Shore Rebels. Greg, you called that one, actually. I only know that the Okanagan Sun is always up there. But yeah, you said West Shore was going to win that one. They did.
West Shore has been a juggernaut this year. And yeah, like I said, their West Shore and Okanagan is their Hilltops Thunder. So.
I know you won't do it, Greg, but I am going for the Hilltops in this game.
I'm not cheering for them, but they're going to win.
Hopefully, Sarge brings another championship back to Saskatchewan in the CJFL.
I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to hear about it because my DMs. I am good friends with a lot of Hilltops supporters and former players, and my DMs are going to be full, so I do not want it.
So Greg, I hear that you don't cheer from them. Why the hate for Saskatoon Hilltops?
I'm on the Regina Thunder board.
Okay.
that is ingrained in me. We have people on our board that spit when they hear Saskatoon like corner gas. I'm not one of them. That is gross.
Well, I think that'll do it for this week here on the Piffles podcast. Jeff, again, thank you so much for joining us here, sharing your thoughts on the Riders and taking us back down memory lane a little bit with the '89 team, of course. And I just think it's so cool that you still follow the league as closely as you do, and you're just you're a big giant fan now. I think that's so cool because you don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah, I was born in 1965, the year that my dad's rookie season was, and so I was literally born into this league. I love the league. thank God we're like a cockroach and nobody can kill us, because this league should have died many times, and I hope it lasts another 100 years for the sake of the country and for football in Canada. So yeah, I am a big fan. I'm a big Rider fan, and I just want everybody to do well, and everybody to do well. Everybody has to succeed at the box office in order for the league to be sustainable. So thanks for that. I love the league. I'm a big I do what I can to support it.
And I know you did another year of analysis on 620 CKRM for the game day shows. Is that something that might be in the future in 2024 as well?
I hope so. Daniela has bailed and going to Ontario, so I'm not sure what the future holds. We've got a couple more things to do. We're going to do it for the playoffs, and hopefully, if they want me back, then I'll be certainly happy to do it, because it keeps me involved. I have fun talking about it. Otherwise, I'd sit back and not pay attention. But I'd still watch the games, but now I have to watch them a little closer. But I really do enjoy it.
Well, again, Jeff, thanks for your time here this week, sharing everything with us. We appreciate that, and all the best going forward.
Thanks, guys. It's always fun. I listen to you every week when I'm working out on usually, Wednesdays, I think I listen to you guys. And yeah, you do a good job. Like you said, we don't always agree, but it's I love the passion you guys have for the team and our league, and especially for the Hilltops, Greg. So it's good.
Well, I was going to tell Steve if he's listened this far, he's been replaced, but fine, I guess. Yeah, you're out.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
All good.
Well, of course, Piffles Podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks always go out to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support making the show possible. We'll leave you like we do every single week with some Tyler Gilbert. This is Ghost Behind Your Mind.